Assalamualaikum, my name is YUSMIATIRAH, binti ISHAK, matric holder A19A0997. Today our group will explain about the Hiwalah. So I will explain about definition of Hiwalah. Hiwalah is a legally binding agreement. It cannot be terminated unilaterally. Instead, both parties must agree to the termination for it to be effective. According to the Sharia, a debt transfer must take effect right away. This means it cannot be put on hold for an extended period of time or be conditional on something happening in the future. Nonetheless, deferring payment of a transfer obligation to a future date is permitted. In the term of right, Hiwalah refers to the transfer of the right to sue from one creditor to another. The debtors own the new creditor and is no longer obligated to the old creditor because the new creditor has replaced the pure one. In this way, the transfer of debt varies from the transfer of right, in that a debtor is replaced by another debtor in the former, while a creditor is replaced by another creditor in the latter. So that's all for the definition. We continue with the next part.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Karinisa Naswamiti MISLAN. My number is A19A0214. So, I will continue with the features of the Hiwalah. First, the legality of Hiwalah. This method of Hiwalah is paying debt was adopted from the Prophet ﷺ practice in Sahih Al-Bukhari and Muslim that have a proof of Hiwalah where Abu Hurairah radhiallahu anhu reported to the Prophet ﷺ. From this hadith, majority of jurists infer that it's preferred to simply accept the transfer of debt, but it doesn't from an obligation. On the opposite opinion, ruled by Zahir and Imam Ahmad, that the text of hadith include an order that creates it obligatory to simply accept the transfer of debt. Next, the types of Hiwalah. Based on Hanafi views, there have two kinds of Hiwalah, which is Hiwalah Muqayyada and Hiwalah Mutlaqah. Additionally, there have two categories for Hiwalah Muqayyada. First, Hiwalah Al-Haq and Hiwalah Ad-Dayan. Basically, Hiwalah Al-Haq, a transfer or right to claim from other person to others, which is the replacement of a creditor with another creditor. Hiwalah Ad-Dayan means the transfer of a debt or from an obligation of someone to a different person obligation, which is that the replacement of a debtor with another debtor. The difference for these two categories is defined by a particular party stepping out of the transaction. One of the creditor and also the other is the debtor. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is NURAISYAH binti AZIZAN and my matrix number is A19A0695. So, I would like to discuss about the comparison between conventional and Islamic product or instrument and unique features with its conventional counterpart and also current issues that are frequently debated. So, we go through the comparison between conventional and Islamic product or instrument. So, our discussion is about Hiwalah. So, the definition of Hiwalah, the transfer of debt from muhil's liabilities to muhallayah liabilities, is different when implemented in the bank. So, Al-Hiwalah can be further highlight the concept of remittance. The researchers found that Al-Hiwalah and remittance have the same method in terms of transfer of responsibility, zimma, from one person to another. In Islamic banking, such BIMB, as Bank Islam Malaysia, has applied this concept not only to debt but has been used in transfer of funds from one person to another. Bank Islam Malaysia has combined the concept of Hiwalah and Wakalah BINTI and enabled to receive the commission the transfer fund. And while the concept practiced by conventional bank is to send money by a banker check, and this check can be picked up and paid at the bank and issue itself. So bank charge and commission and stamp tax for issuing cashier order. And now can also choose to transfer money through bank account as a MoneyGram is available in Maybank and also in CIMB. Next, unique features with a conventional counterpart. Al-Hiwalah is a unique system that is suitable to be adapted to human. This is because Al-Hiwalah is a part of human life. Mu'amalah is often happen on receivable debt problem. Therefore, some of the way to solve the problem of Mu'amalah should be highlighted in Al-Hiwalah as a way to get rid of the problem. Al-Hiwalah is not only used to solve the problem of receivable, but more than that, also serve as a transfer of funds from individual to other individual or companies or firm as has been adopted by some banking system. Okay, next, about the current issue that are frequently debated is any issue that is often debated is related to use Hiwalah in credit cards. The proper credit card operation that has caused controversy among scholars today, and scholars differ on the Mu'amalah agreement used in the credit card use, whether the concept of a credit card is appropriate today or vice versa. The result of the scholar's search in the credit card process of the three parties involved in the agreement relate to a separate agreement between them. The agreement between three parties involved that is done separately, each require its own condition. In conclusion, the theory of Hiwalah, which is very different from the contract content in the transfer of debt, is related to one perception of another person dependent, which smell of multazim, obligated person. Every transaction that is carried out with a perfect agreement, pillars, condition without any conflict with Islamic law, then this Al-Hiwalah transaction is perfect. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Everything comes with advantage and disadvantages. Same goes with our topic Hiwalah. It is the benefit for the borrower to verify loan recovery to ensure that the money may be reclaimed by requesting payment from the transferor, or we call it as muhalalai in usual conditions, or perhaps only in case of default payment from the first debtor or transferee. So since he may remit or hand over his debt to his own debtor, the debtor can quote and distribute his danger. Furthermore, the advantages of Hiwalah for the debtor include the ability to persuade the borrower to lend him more money because he or she has someone to back him up as the payment transferor. Next, these are the 4 different scenarios that may effectively terminate a Hiwalah contract. So the first one is the mutual agreement between contracting parties to finish the Hiwalah contract. This returns all the parties to establish order before entering the Hiwalah contract, and hence the transferee is entitled to claim the debt from the transferor and not the payer. The second scenario is when the debt is effectively settled via full payment by the payer to the transferee. The third one, when the payer dies and also the transferee inherits his property. And the last one, when the debt has been written off by the transferee.
Assalamualaikum and a very good day. So my name is SALIMA binti KASIM as KASMI, metric holder A19A0959. So I would like to explain about illustration of Hiwalah, which is Hiwalah have 2 types. The first one is Hiwalah muqayyadah, which is restricted Hiwalah. The transaction where the payer is restricted to settling the balance of the transferred debt from the amount of a financial or tangible asset that belongs to the transferor and is in the hands of the payer. The second type of hiwalah is hiwalah mutlaqah, which is unrestricted hiwalah. A transferor of debt from a borrower to a payer in which the transferor is not the creditor. The payer agrees to pay the balance of the transferor's debt from his own funds and then to have resources to pay the transferor for settlement, given that the payment was made on the transferor's order. So move to the basic rule and conditions of hiwalah. All the contracting parties must be constitutionally capable of operating on their own. All involved parties, including the transferor, and payer, must agree to the hiwalah agreement. And next is the transferor must owe the transfer money. The payer in a limited hiwalah must be the transferor's debtor. So next, the exchange debt as well as the debt to be settled must both be recognized and transferable. And the last one is in a restricted hiwalah, the transferred debt or transferred portion of debt must be equal in kind, form, quality, and sum to the debt owed to the transferor. The transferor, on the other hand, may transfer a smaller amount of debt owed to the transferor to the settled from a larger amount owed by the transferor, as long as the transferor is entitled to the equal amount of his debt. So the next illustration, I will pass it to the Hasna. That's all from me. Thank you.
My name is Hasna FAIZAH binti Marzuki. My metric number is A19A1032. I will continue about the illustration restricted hiwalah. The illustration for restricted hiwalah is the same as the unrestricted hiwalah. Which one different? From the diagram, illustrate the restricted model. The payers owns Rm10,000 to the transferor, and in addition, the transferor also owns Rm10,000 to the transferee. In this case, the transferor can choose to transfer the payer's debt of Rm10,000 to the transferee to settle the debt. Number 2 is illustration unrestricted hiwalah. In this case, the payer does not have to own the transferor. However, the payer can still promise to repay the transferor's debt using his own funds, provided he gets instruction from the transferor. For example, we can say about the diagram, transferor owns Rm10,000 to transferee. Transferor transfer is obligation to payers. Payers settle the debts by paying Rm10,000 to transferee.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is NURAISYAH ATIKAH binti NAWAWI. My metric number is A19A0652. I will present about the conclusion of hiwalah. Hiwalah is a contract where there is transfer of debt from one party to another party involving principal debtor, creditor, and transferee. Hiwalah divided by two. First, restricted, and also second, unrestricted. Hiwalah is a supporting contract that include in Sharia contract for Islamic finance instrumentals. Hiwalah has been subsumed into the banking system, include conventional and also Islamic banking. Next, hiwalah has also been made use by informal networks as a tools for value transfer. Impact on contemporary finance is quite remarkable. Restrictions of movement in carrying large sums of money due to security factors. However, security interests are also created through payment channels to prevent illegal activities involving the money. That's all from me. Thank you.